Hello, I'm Nan Simonsen. I am about to do one of my favorite subjects or speak on, and hope to have our um, attending members for this live Facebook group um, experience share along with me. Although I have a lot of material I put together for you, and we'll begin in just a moment. Let me know if you're on, and I'll be watching comments. Sometimes I'm on such a roll, I don't watch comments well enough, and I hope that's not the case today, because I'd really like to engage you in this. All right, it's time to begin. So today's topic is Nourish, and the title of it was Nourishing Ourselves Without Food. I should have simply asked, what nourishes you besides food, in addition to food, because we could be nourished perfectly with the food we eat and still not have vibrant health if we aren't taking care of ourselves in ways that feed us deeply. And I'm going to look at a number of ways that we can nourish ourselves that are as important as it relates to how it affects our body as what we put in our mouth. If I begin, I'll talk about, or to begin, I'm going to talk about what inspired me to even talk about this subject. If you have read my book, or if you have it, Aging Powerfully, you'll see that just past the dedication, really just the fourth page before they even start numbering pages, I talk about sunflowers, because sunflowers nourish me. They speak to my soul. Why and how? The book is part memoir, and I'll just say very quickly, good morning, Linda. I'll just say very quickly that I didn't have an ideal or typical, I mean, a lot of us don't, typical upbringing. Things got kind of gnarly. I don't think I've ever said this out loud, even since I've written my book, but I attempted suicide at 15 and then again at 18, and they were serious attempts. I was in such a situation that should have been it, but both times it didn't happen. It's in the book, and that's not what the book is about at all. As a matter of fact, it's not a sad book, but that's how desperate things felt. And so I know the importance of nourishing ourselves, and the value of that, and even why, because let's see, all right, because we feed ourselves deeply in ways that affect us and bring lightness to our lives and smiles on our face. So the sunflower, to me, represents something that and I wrote this in the book too, that a French proverb, which I quoted, highlights: wherever life plants you, bloom with grace. And that's what a sunflower does. A sunflower will come up in almost any situation and make the best of it. At the end today, I'm going to write something that was written about sunflowers that was, I think, the best description of their strength and power, and again, what sort of represents what they mean to me. Well, I was in my backyard because when I wrote my book, we didn't know anything about COVID, and I was ready to hit the road and do book signings, and I purchased sunflower seeds from somewhere in Vermont that has sustainable practices, beautiful seeds. They create meadows of seeds that are, a lot of them heirloom, and so the package was that I bought bulk sunflower seeds 5 different sunflower seeds from 8-footers down to the little low babies, and you never knew what you were going to get. That's life, isn't it? All representational. And I bought the envelopes, and I had the graphics made, and with instructions on planting them, and never got to use them. And I can't even sell a book and send it with the book because the price of adding these seeds or even sending them all by themselves is like $4 or $5 because it's package rate, maybe 5 or 6. Anyway, someday I'll use them because things are opening up. We'll see. So that I was out in my little patch. I have a full garden. There are plants everywhere. I'm a master gardener by training, and I designed gardens for decades. And I didn't have a big spot, but I have a little teeny patch, and then I had a pot, and I thought, let's see if I plant in both, which come up best. So there's about this much room that I gave the sunflowers, both in this bigger pot I got at Home Depot and in my garden. And the sunflowers are east facing, so they're not even getting full sun, but you know what? They're blooming. And I've got several colors because I didn't know it was coming up. The biggest one so far is 7.5 feet, and it's a burnished copper. It's absolutely gorgeous. I'll post some pictures at the end of my puny little sunflower patch, but it made me so happy. I realized this is nourishing me. Hi, Lisa. Good morning from Michigan. And I thought, let's talk about that. Let's talk about ways that we nourish ourselves besides food. You know how I feel about food. You know where I gain my strength. For me, it's whole foods, not manufactured foods, and plant-based. So all the things that we get from nature, not from factories and bags and packages. And I'm exaggerating that a little. I made a whole grain pasta the other day. That came from a bag and a package. So let's talk about what I mean by nourish and what is meant by nourish. Nourish is a Latin word. It means feed and cherish in simplicity. And if you look at what cherish means, it means protect or care for lovingly and what we hold dear. That's everything about our lives. If we nourish ourselves, we cherish ourselves, we have lives that are working for us as opposed to against us. And we're working for ourselves rather than pulling ourselves down. And regardless of what all of us have been through, every one of us have been through pain and loss. I lost a husband after 40 years of marriage. I was 18 when I met him, 19 when I married him, 59 when he died. And man, oh man, I didn't know what I was going to do. And you know what? That was 10 years ago, and it all worked out. Things always work out. So let's talk about ways that we nourish ourselves and what we nourish. First of all, we nourish our soul. And we nourish our soul best by loving ourselves. Deeply, unquestionably, unconditionally, wholeheartedly loving ourselves. I was watching a show, and we only watch very small amounts of any TV, but I saw an interview with Rita Moreno. And if you're young, I'm 70. If you're young, you don't know who I'm talking about as it relates to this movie, West Side Story. But she was the lead in West Side Story, one of the leads in West Side Story. She is a couple of months away from being 90. The woman is a pistol. She looks fabulous. I'm sure she's had some help. It takes help at 90 to, be way up there. But she's in great shape. She dances. And they asked her and so I did a deep dive. I did some research into whether or not she's ever addressed what she does. And the thing that I saw quoted a couple of times from different sources was that she learned to love herself. She said, as this Puerto Rican little girl, I was taught I was never enough by those outside, and in a way, in a masculine kind of family, by those inside of the family and the home. So she nailed it. I learned to love myself. How do you do that? You tell yourself every day and in every little way you can that you're enough, that you're smart, that you're intelligent, and that you are a gift from God, and whatever God is. I'll talk about that a little bit more because when I also talk about nourishing yourself, so you nourish your soul, your essence, and you do that by loving yourself. You nourish yourself by giving yourself compliments. And that sounds odd. It may take a little bit of practice. But decades ago, when I joined, and some of you know that I come from a sales background. I went to a Tupperware party with a 4-month-old, and before I knew it, I was selling that, and before I knew it, I was a manager, and before I knew it, I owned a Tupperware company. But I always, from the time I started, knowing that we learn from those who came before us, and that's a really smart thing to do, everyone, and we learn from the experiences of others. I always bought cassette tapes back then, and then VHSs, and then whatever else they had. But I would buy these cases of cassettes. I called them albums, and listen to what people like Zig Ziglar had to say. These are names a lot of you won't know. Brian Tracy. Oh gosh, I had so many. And my son still will quote some of them because he'd be in the back of the car. I started when he was 4 months old. I never stopped listening. And one of the things that Brian Tracy said is, and this was in terms of sales, but this was also in terms of development. He said, look at yourself in the mirror and say, I love myself, I love myself, I can do it. You know, that positive, motivational stuff. You know what? To a degree, that really matters. After Bob, my husband, passed, I did a lot of traveling, and I spent time in India, and I lived in a yoga center and got a certification as a yoga coach, which I've never used, but there was a lot of training, Ayurvedic training, meditation training, because I lived there, and the classes were 8 and 9 hours a day. And one of the things that I learned to do was this Ayurvedic prayer, and it began with these. Well, it began first of all with gratitude, and I've never forgotten to be grateful, and every day, and we'll talk about that. But it also began with it is commanded that I am one with God. Now, God can be anything. God can be a universe. God can be the creator of who knows what, in what way they did it. It can be Father God. But it is commanded it is commanded that I am one with God, and I am. And then that I am was filled in with every word that we were willing to pull out of our hearts and apply to our belief in ourself. I am grounded. I am resilient. I am beautiful inside and out. And beauty wasn't a physical manifestation of anything more than our belief that we are who we're supposed to be. And it went on and on. And the longer we could come up with, and I am succeeding, and I am inspirational, and I am a leader. That was part of what I knew I wanted to be. And it would just go on and on and on. And I am resilient, and I am a great gardener. And I came right back and was working in my landscape design business very successfully. But what it was it wasn't our reminding ourselves, the way most of us do on a daily basis, about what wasn't perfect or practiced or top-notch about ourselves. It was reminding ourselves, even if it wasn't quite the case yet, who and what we were capable of being. Some people would call that affirmation. Some people say they don't work. Doesn't matter. I think I found that fed me. And to a letter, ultimately, those things that I still do this, walking up the mountain even, because every day I go for a walk or a bike ride, and I still listen to inspirational people, knowledgeable people, but I always take the time to do that Ayurvedic prayer. And then after this long list of things that, and I am this and I am that, and I have given this and that to others, and this is what I will continue to do. And then it just ends with, and it is done. And that's, I put it out there into the universe. Sounds new age, doesn't it? Or, um, oh, I don't know, less than what somebody who is very formally and religiously spiritual would do. But it's not a bad idea in any way that you choose to do it. All right. How else do we nourish ourselves? And please share, if you're inspired to, the things that you do that maybe what I'm talking about leads you to want to talk about. All right. We also nourish our mind. We nourish our mind through the thoughts that pass on a regular basis. We nourish our mind best with positive thoughts. Positive thoughts about things and people and situations. If you catch yourself being negative, what scientists say is that it's very hard to change your mind. Whatever your mind is thinking, it's hard to just change it. But it isn't difficult to insert new thoughts that then supersede the old. So instead of, when things are going badly and we're hitting them with a barrage of negativity, people, places, things, and you'll be surprised. I sometimes am surprised and I'll think, Nan, where's that come from? A negative thought will come in. Maybe it's about a person. Maybe it's about a person that I have no business even thinking about. And I'll immediately, and I've learned to do this. It's never perfect. Where did that thought come from in the first place? But I'll right away replace it with something else. But look at how well that person stands, or look at the smile on their face, or look at the age on them. They've gotten through so many years. Things like that. Replace our negative thoughts with positive ones, especially as it relates to ourselves. And one of my favorite things that I learned to do way back in my early sales days to make a difference in other people's lives, because that's what I realized I was really good at. I wasn't good at a lot of things in a scholarly way because I have some deficiencies, dyslexia, ADHD, and my brain doesn't work as well as it could in some traditional ways. But man, did I learn to catch people doing something right, to watch for people's strengths and make sure they knew I knew. And catching people doing something right, if that becomes your mantra, oh my goodness, does that empower you to simply embrace a moment or a person or a situation. So any situation that comes up, look for that silver lining, because there's always a silver lining to everything. Nourish your mind. No, nourish your heart. Give thanks for the simple things in life all the time. Give thanks. Give thanks to the things that can easily be overlooked as too minute. Things like the sun coming up, things like the sun going down, things like the butterflies that land on the flowers in your garden, the birds that find seeds around your garden paths. I'm just searching, but if we were having an exchange and I said, write me 5 things that you're grateful for, you would in some cases come up very easily with the big stuff, like I am so grateful that I have my husband, I'm so grateful we have a home still, I'm so grateful I didn't get COVID, or if I got COVID, I'm grateful to be speaking to you now, having gotten through it. But there are a lot of little things. When my husband and I have lunch outside in my garden, and it's such a floral garden, there's a lot of activity there. I call it air action. Birds, butterflies, bees, all kinds of things flying around. We play a game, and the game is, I've never seen that before. Something, and that's something that you can be grateful for. Seeing for the first time something you've never seen before. And if you're looking for that, it happens all the time. For example, the other day there were three hummingbirds chasing each other. Now I've seen two chase each other, but I've never seen three all at once in formation doing their dominance dance, because they're rather territorial. Some of them especially are rather territorial. And I've never seen that. That kind of like made my day, because then I could say, I just saw something today I have never seen before. And it makes that day an important day. And you can go to bed every night and say, what did I see that was something I'd never seen before? Or what did I see that I am so grateful for? Or what did I hear? Or what did I feel? That becomes a habit. Do that, and that becomes a habit. So nourish our hearts with gratitude. We also have a way of nourishing ourselves with personal habits. There's something called the internal audience. If you've ever listened to Dr. Lyle, he talks about the internal audience. We can't fool the internal audience, meaning that we may sneak things. I spent a lifetime sneaking with an eating disorder. I could never fool that internal audience. Nobody knew, not in 55 years except my husband, but I knew, and it ate me down to my soul. I couldn't love myself, and it was a challenge, and yet I found a way to have a productive life in a lot of other ways, but I wonder what it could have been otherwise. So you nourish yourself in your personal habits, the things you do every day that your internal audience is watching. You know that do it now saying with it's Nike, I think. I play that in my head all the time. When there's a thing to do that is either a necessity or just a good idea, or something that would lead further toward goals, or it just needs to be done in the kitchen, in the backyard, or whatever it is. I picture that Nike, I call it a check mark. I picture the Nike check mark, and that means do it now, or just do it. That's what it is. Just do it. And I'll just do it. I'll just, what the heck, do it. Things like that, you get the applause from your personal, your internal audience. And that internal audience is never not watching. And there are things that, well, I'll give you an example too, and I'd be happy to see your examples if you want to share them, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, Craig, good to see you. For example, this morning in the shower, you've heard me say this before, squeegeeing your shower keeps it clean, so that's a good habit. So I do squats when I squeegee, and that teeny little thing pleased my internal audience, and that personal habit nourished me in some way. There's something called dopamine. We have serotonin that calms us down. We have dopamine that not only energizes us, but dopamine is very goal oriented. Dopamine is what kicks in when we get something that we're proud of, or that is electrifying, or that is particularly delicious. Unfortunately, dopamine kicks in with a lot of the processed foods we eat, because the manufacturers go out of their way. They use brain scan equipment to create foods that will give us dopamine hits that make us not want to stop. Dopamine has a lot to do with addictiveness and all kinds of things like that. But you can give yourself a dopamine hit simply because, again, it's goal oriented, by doing tiny little things like that. And when your dopamine is higher, your autonomic nervous system, that system that is out of your control, it responds to things that you don't decide, like heartbeat, digestion, blood flow. Well, that would be part of heartbeat. And your neurotransmitters, serotonin, dopamine, cortisol, that's not a neurotransmitter, but that's your hormones. They all affect that autonomic nervous system. Well, anything you do that gives you a bit of a zing actually quiets the autonomic nervous system that's sympathetic as opposed to the parasympathetic. The sympathetic nervous system, getting the heart beating and all of that, also controls whether or not you're going to digest. In that, if you're all stressed out and all hyped up and you can't, you're just into the throes of that, you are not going to digest. So it literally affects your body, your microbiome, your health. If on the other hand you're in rest and digest mode, that's your the parasympathetic side of your autonomic nervous system. That is affected by these kinds of things, your thoughts, your neurotransmitters. So bottom line, doing things like my silly little shower squats, those are physically healthy, but they also please me because I'm getting something done. And even doing it in all kinds of different rotations, that side first, because that kind of helps you keep your brain a little bit more fresh, to change things up that you do on a regular basis in such a way that it's not becoming just rote. I finish my showers with a cold hit of water, super cold, like all the way off. And I stand there after turning it off and I go, here it comes, gird your loins. I actually say that out loud like I'm on a stage somewhere, and boom, the thing hits. And it's, in a way, well, first of all, there's something called heat shock proteins that actually strengthen our system when we do that. That's why it's done all over the world. People sauna and then jump in a cold pool or roll around in ice or jump in a river or something like that. It really does make a difference. But things like that. You can do all kinds of little habits that give you a jolt. Your personal habits, your internal audience goes, whoa, way to go. And this can go on and on and on. Nourish yourself with acts of kindness. It is absolutely true that what we do that's nice for others will create hits of neurotransmitters, your dopamine, that will, petting your pet, hugging somebody, now that we can hug, yes, just expressing appreciation for others, doing things out of kindness, sacrificing a bit for somebody else, actually gives you a payback that will energize you for minutes, maybe hours, maybe days. And all of that, it's not selfish because you do it on purpose. Yes, your internal audience is waving flags, but it's part of what becomes you. That is somebody who through acts of kindness can make a difference to other people. Nourish your let's see, have a to-do list for the next day. Yes, Linda, thank you. Linda said having a to-do list for the next day helps me keep focused and I feel accomplished. That's absolutely right. Writing that to-do list will give you a jolt. Doing the to-do list, having a list and just checking off as you finish things gives you a hit. I have blank papers in a little desk, not a desk, a little nightstand. And at night when I wake up and my mind's going like this, in the dark, I pull out a little piece of paper. There's one of them. Look at this, people. Got a whole bunch of them. And I write a note in the dark, sometimes very hard to read in the morning. But the minute I do that, I can go back to sleep because I'm not like that. But when this is done and I crumble it up and throw it away, same thing as that little check mark. So thank you for sharing that. That's absolutely right, your to-do list. Nourish your spirit with the eyes of a child. Now, what do I mean by that? The eyes of a child, they don't overthink anything. They don't over-evaluate. They see things that we don't see anymore because they don't take everything for granted. It's almost like a puppy that chews on shoes, but the adult won't because shoes are now boring, or maybe they know they better not. If we see the world through the eyes of a child, we are opening ourselves up to examine what we now take for granted. If you go into your days and you decide that you're going to see what you no longer notice, you're going to celebrate your moments, and you're going to celebrate the things that are totally simplistic, and they become a highlight in your day. Feeds your body, calms your system, gives you a rush of pleasure, makes you healthier. Nourish your inner self. Nourish your inner self by making dates with yourself. Get in a habit of deciding that you're worth it. Men do, to a certain degree, a lot of sacrificial things. Women do them even more. In that we tend to give a little bit more of ourselves than sometimes we even should, because we kind of think that's what we're supposed to do. We're born as mothers and caretakers, and sometimes feel more worthy if we give more. The problem is that we could do that, but there's thoughts in the back of our mind that we have needs that are not being met. Reality, sometimes physically we become exhausted. And if we make a date and it's as valuable to us as that list we were talking about, the to-do list, and we do things that feed us, that nourish us to the deepest you, um, you're going to find that by doing that. And what can some of those things be? They can be like taking a bath. If you love baths, I happen to love baths, to read in a bath, to keep putting hot water in until I'm a prune. It pleases me. Whenever I travel, I'm going to go to a conference, a health conference. I can't believe it. Next Thursday I leave and be gone till Monday. I haven't been, for any of us, most of us haven't been to anything like a conference in a long time, and I just can't wait. I always book a room with a request that it have a tub, because every night I'm going to be in that tub reading. Things like that. Make a point of waking up in time to see the sun rise, or get to a place and watch the sun set. Maybe write about your impressions of it visually, but also your thoughts about the day, so that you can take the time to get that down into thoughts. I think I've said enough about that. But reward yourself on a daily basis in subtle as well as overt ways. All right, nourish the deepest you. And what I mean by that is with things that sometimes take a little skill to develop, like meditation. Meditation can be nothing more than counting 10 breaths out. I don't mean 10, yeah, well, 10 in and out breaths done slowly, and 1 to 10, and then 10 back to 1. That means you've done 20 breaths and staying focused on the breath. Feel it going through the nose, feel it coming out of the mouth, feeling the abdomen rise, not the chest, but the deep breaths, and the abdomen pull back in, so that you're controlling your mind and learning that you can, because that's why meditation has been proven. This is very scientific. Meditation has been proven to have a huge impact on wellness, on mediation of illness, on mental health, on development of Alzheimer's, on development of all chronic diseases, because meditation allows us to learn how to stop the chatter that most of us have going on in our heads all the time, that sometimes dominate our thoughts and sometimes run us rather raggedly. So meditation, listen to relaxing music, read something good. I loved this quote: "The art of words is the most underrated way of nourishing the soul back to life." The art of words is the most underrated way of nourishing the soul back to life. I think we've all had the experience of reading a thing, a book, an article, the Bible, and getting great comfort from it, remembering the words and realizing that it's changed us in a way. Let's not forget to do that. Find beauty in storms. Again, going back to that silver lining and knowing that always things will pass. Finding beauty in storms. That's a good way of saying find the silver lining and find the positive in everything that we possibly can. Uh, Bottom line, and I wanted to, before I finish that, and I'm not going to take all of our time if we don't need to, but bottom line, does anyone have anything that you want to add? I'm paying attention to your comments. Well, what I'm going to do while you're thinking or about to write, because I don't see anything there, is I'm going to read from Aging Powerfully. It's not my description. This was from Dame Helen Lydia Mirren. Helen Mirren is a British actress. She's in her 80s, and she wrote this, and I think wrote it very well. I don't think there's anything on this planet that more trumpets life than the sunflower. For me, that's because of the reason behind its name, not because it looks like the sun, but because it follows the sun. During the course of the day, the head tracks the journey of the sun across the sky, a satellite dish for sunshine. Wherever light is, no matter how weak, these flowers will find it. And that's such an admirable thing that it's a lesson in life. Love that quote. Love what it represents, sunflowers. Love that I have a patch that big of sunflowers that don't realize that they were only given a 2-foot square area to grow, even though some of them now are 8 foot tall, almost 8 foot tall, and not a lot of light, but they managed. They found a way, and I'm so grateful for that. Is there anything that you wanted to say or anything more that maybe I missed? Okay, all right. Well, I hope you got something out of today. I hope it was helpful. What I find, because this is very much what Aging Powerfully is like, after the memoir part and the story part and the descriptions of what lifestyle as medicine can do for us and what it is, because this is the way I believe. These things that we talked about today that are subtle, these in combination are what make us who we are health-wise, and they can lead to, for example, a life like Rita Moreno, 90 years old, and she just finished co-directing a movie with Steve Spielberg at almost 90 years old. That is 20 years older than I am, and I hear that and I say, okay, Rita, I will learn from you. And that's why I went right in and started doing a deep dive. And there's no huge secrets there. I was hoping to read that she was whole food plant-based, but she never even talks about food. So I don't know. I don't know what she does. Okay, I appreciate, this was very inspiring. Thank you, Linda. I appreciate that. Leslie, we take so much for granted. Yeah, we do. Leslie Boyd Bradley is on, and she is the daughter, one of the 2 daughters of the woman that I reference in Aging Powerfully, Sylvia Boyd, whom, see, I'm going to get teary. Wow, I didn't think that would come. Who, because there wasn't a mother figure in my life that I could cling to in traditional ways, I met her at 27 when I had a 4-month-old, and she became the mother figure that has held that place for my entire life. I mean, I'm 70, and this gorgeous, wonderful woman who is, I don't know what she is now, 84 or 5. Leslie, you can tell me. And Leslie has gone on to create success in many businesses, including as I had for 25, 26 years in the realm of Tupperware. She has gone on and she is now rebuilt another business, and her business is coaching people, but coaching them in success in business. And so it's a delight when I know she's on, because she's basically doing the same thing, and uh, has a lot of work, and she could very easily have no time for us. But anyway, that's my story. Okay, and that story. Well, goodbye, everybody. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you like crazy. Spread the word about aging powerfully, living powerfully by making decisions that affect our life in every way we can, and please us down to the soul. That's nourishment. All right. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you. And next Tuesday, is it? Yeah, next Thursday, I'm going to be on a plane to Cleveland for this health conference. So I believe I'm going to do my Facebook Live on Wednesday in the afternoon. I'll have to look at that, but know that there'll be a little bit of a change, and I'll let you know earlier on Monday or Tuesday for sure what it's going to be. And you can always catch this at a later time. Okay, bye everyone. Thank you. And have a great day, because as Arlene Cohn, a great friend of mine, always said, because have a great day, because I know I'm going to. Bye everyone.